Thank you, Alan. Thank you, everybody. Good afternoon. Thank you very much. I'm thrilled to be here with you all this afternoon. I am William Henry. My website is iamwilliamhenry.com. I'm going to keep the QR code up just for a moment in case you want to follow up with some information about my tours and books and other things like that. So today, yes, my topic is the fire inside, the soul and ascension in the age of AI and transhumanism. So let's begin with, let me make sure this is operating. Okay, Jeremy, we'll work on that while I speak for a moment. So let's start with some definitions. Soul. Survey. No right or wrong answer, just wondering what you all think. We have, as humans, a body with a soul. Let's switch it up. We have a soul with a body. Okay, so we're about 50-50. That's good. That's a good starting place. It's a very important conception or idea because we don't know the ultimate answer, but as the days unfold, this is something that's going to be a benchmark for us. So the idea is that if we are a body with a soul, what you've just expressed is, they call it scientific materialism, that there's really no soul, but it could be an expression of our biology. Everything's rooted in our genes from this perspective. It's very scientific. And you will hear perspectives that we have a divine gene. And because this is created by a divine gene, this is fixed. And the soul is then an emanation of this fixed body. And we can't change this body. That's scientific determinism. That's the spiritual gene hypothesis. Now, if you think or believe or have a sense that we are a soul with a body, now you're talking like Plato, 600 BC. This idea carries forward into the early Christian era. First, the Essenes, Jewish mystics, adopt this idea. Then, of course, Jesus did as well. This is the foundation of Christianity. Your body is temporary. In fact, it's not only temporary, it's kind of not irrelevant, but it's ultimately meant to be transformed. It's not fixed, it's meant to be transformed. Hence, when Jesus was teaching the disciples, he takes them up to the top of Mount Tabor, or perhaps Mount Hermon, and he demonstrates what this thing can do. It can transfigure into light, into a plasma state, like lightning. And Jesus tells us this is what's inside of us. So this is a profound distinction. You're thinking, I got a divine gene. God took care of everything for me, and this is fixed. Or you're thinking, well, the Son of Man came along and said this is actually meant to be transformed. It's a very important distinction as we go. So soul, we talked about that. Let's talk about a couple of the other concepts that we're going to get into today. AI, artificial intelligence. By now, I think all of us have a sense that our world is being run, some would say ruined, by algorithms. Machines are doing all the work for us, creating this invisible layer all around us. Artificial intelligence, it's everywhere now. There's a lot of fear around it. I get that. I've been writing about this for 15 years now. So I understand that. And as my thinking evolved about AI, and it has evolved, I have an arc that we'll be discussing. I started to think about, well, wait a minute, if AI is here to be a mirror and maybe even to challenge us, then what is the solution for us as humans? And for me, as I wrote in 2015 in my book, The Singularity is Near, I think that the antidote to artificial intelligence is to raise our ascension intelligence, AI. Clever, huh? The antidote to artificial intelligence is to raise our ascension intelligence. And what I mean by that is for us to become more like the angels, to think like the angels and the ascended beings, the avatars. They exist in a higher layer of our reality. And they can come down into this reality and they can manipulate the physics of this world, and we call that performing miracles. They can manipulate this world and perform miracles because they're from a higher level. And my thinking was, okay, if we've got this unimaginably, incomprehensibly powerful tool, AI, at our disposal now, and it's challenging us, what if we get up to that higher level won't that help us to harmonize or better understand and work with AI? That made sense to me. And as my thinking evolves, I'm going along saying, okay, if you're talking about the angelic realm, super powerful beings, they're avatars, then what about avatar intelligence? And of course, when we're talking about angels and avatars, then we might be talking about aliens and alien intelligence. So when I use AI in our conversation today, I want you to be thinking on those multiple levels, that it's not just artificial intelligence that I'm referring to, it's Ascension Intelligence, it's angelic intelligence, avatar intelligence, alien intelligence, because they're all the same. They're all ultimately the same in my view. So that's AI, but now what about transhumanism? Oh, now we get really afraid, right? At least I did at one time. The word trans means beyond. Transhuman means to go beyond human. And when I first started writing about this was 2003, end of 2002. I was finishing my book, Cloak of the Illuminati. I'm studying the angels and angelic intelligence, and I'm noticing that all these angels and even ETs, extraterrestrials, such as the Anunnaki, are defined by a force that they possess that humans don't have. And this force is symbolized by a cloak or a garment, sometimes referred to as a garment of light, the robe of glory, the robe of the soul. There are innumerable names for it. And what I noticed is that this robe is transmittable. In other words, in the ancient Sumerian times, a human could encounter an Anunnaki being who came from that next higher layer and was capable of being on the receiving end of the cloak or garment of the Anunnaki, and then they could become Anunnaki and follow them into the heavenly realms. And I followed that garment all through Samaria, Egypt, into the Jewish tradition, all the way up to the transfiguration and baptism of Christ. It's this continuous line of transmission. And I thought, well, maybe this is an actual physical garment, but more than likely it's a frequency. It's also a teaching that they're transmitting along the line. As I was finishing that book, the United States government dropped a report on enhancing human performance. And in this report, they proposed that the US government is going to promote the fusion of 4 separate technologies: bits, or computer technology, atoms, or nanotechnology, neurons, or neuroscience, and genes, genetic science. Bits, atoms, neurons, and genes. And what they proposed is fusing those into one seamless technology, aiming it at the human body to create a new species of machine intelligence and to create unlimited wealth and introduce a new golden age. Now, Gina is here. She'll well remember me going on the air with George Noory in 2003 and blow into the galleries about this. This is evil. This is demonic. We can't ever do this. Look what they're trying to do to us. Oh, we got to be afraid of all this. Look what they're trying to do. They're trying to turn us into machines. They're putting our children on the altar of Silicon Valley technology, and they never asked our permission. I'm pissed, okay? And I'm going, well, wait a minute. Bits, atoms, neurons, and genes, isn't that just a retooled technological form of earth, air, fire, and water? The elements that our body's made of? And if so, where's the 5th element in all this? Silicon Valley, where is the soul in this equation? You got bits, atoms, neurons, and genes covered. Where's the soul in all of this? And so I stepped out, I'm waving a flag, saying, hey guys, we got to wake up. Because that report said that this was all going to be done by 2035. So back in 2003, when I'm on air talking with George, it's like, guys, at least we got 32 years to get our act together. Well, that was 20 years ago. Now we have how many years? Yeah, less than 10. And we've seen it all roll out. And my thinking was, hey, we've got to remain organic. We've got to remain pure humans. And I drew a clear line. There's very definitely a bifurcation that they're speaking of here that's coming. Some of us are going to choose to go this technological route. Other of us are going to say, no, I want to be a pure human. I want to be an organic human. And I went so far as to say that what they're actually doing is mocking and mimicking our true spiritual capabilities, that all of this is designed to be unwound and manifest a higher dimensional, higher frequency light body. And that's what they're actually proposing in Silicon Valley as well. And I looked at it as a mocking and mimicking, and I was not happy about it at all. And another thing that kind of made me a little bit unhappy is that I would go out for the next 10 years or more talking to groups and talking among my colleagues and say, look, this is the singular issue of our time. We got to get this going. We got to be talking it up. And people would say, oh, William, stop scaring me. Stop scaring people with this talk. We have no idea what you're talking about. What do you mean AI and transhumanism and all this stuff? And so that was the kind of the arc of my thinking for a long time. We must remain pure. We must remain organic. I don't think that way anymore. And the reason why is that from the early days, there were leaps or gaps in my logic, okay? One time, I keep referring to George just because he's present in my mind and perhaps because Gina's here too, but I remember talking with George one night. This would have been 10 years later, 2014, 2015. And I'm saying, we have got to remain organic. The Bible says so. Oh, what do you mean the Bible says so? Well, yeah, in the book of Hebrews, Jesus, who is just parachuted down from the next layer of creation, tells humans, hey, you all can join me up in the next higher layer. It's inhabited, as Hebrews says, by just humans made perfect, along with angels gathered in joyful assembly. And this was my talking point, because when I looked this up, I said, well, wait a minute. Who are these people? These just humans made perfect, and how did they get up to that next layer of creation? And what do I got to do to join them? So I start looking at definitions. I like looking at definitions. Etymologies are really important. So just means righteous. Oh yeah, these are righteous humans, but just also means, I'm just William. Okay, I'm not saying I'm righteous William, I'm just William. Okay, I'm just William, and the next word is human, just human. What does the word human mean when you look it up in a dictionary? It means not animal, divine, or machine. Oh, well, there it is right there. Only humans can ascend to the next higher level because, by definitions, machines can't, because the higher realm is inhabited by just, righteous, or lowly, humble humans made perfect. Made means identified or manufactured. Perfect means to be more whole, more holy, more complete, more compassionate. And in the Essene tradition, perfect means to transfigure into a being of light, just as it does in the Tibetan rainbow light body tradition. So just humans made perfect inhabit the next higher level because they've transformed into the next higher form. And so I'm talking with George about this, and we go to the callers, and a woman calls in. She says, William, man, I've been listening to you since you talked to Art Bell back in 1998. That's like 15 years ago. I love your work. But she says, let me ask you a question. She says, my son just got home from serving in Afghanistan, the Marines. He came home with 2 prosthetic limbs. Are you telling me my son can't ascend because he's a transhuman? Oh. Silence. Not good on the radio. Yes, ma'am, that is what I'm saying. No, ma'am, that is not what I mean. You see the nuance in this discussion. You have the scientific purists that say we are biologically, where God gave us this gene, the divine gene, it's fixed. You cannot mess with this one iota. We must develop what's within us. And I'm sitting here saying, well, it's a little bit more nuanced than that, okay? It's a little bit more nuanced than that, and here's a classic example. Another example, a couple years later, the Vatican comes out and makes a statement about aliens, extraterrestrials, and they say, yeah, if the Martians land at the Vatican, we'll baptize them. I know, it's hysterical. And then they say, but they might not look like us. ... Who are we to limit God's creativity? Whew, another dose of unstoppable logic, William. Sip it down. It was hard. It There's another thing rattling around in my brain. I'm trying to inspire people. Hey, look, we got a battle on our hands. They're coming after us. We're in fear of AI and transhumanism. Look what they're trying to do to us. We've got to remain pure humans, right? And I'm realizing it's a little bit more nuanced than that, right? Who are we to limit God's creativity? How do we know God did not send this AI and transhuman technology, bits, atoms, neurons, and genes, so that we can become better humans? It's the mind of man that says, oh, no, you're not going to do that because that doesn't fit my paradigm, my divine gene paradigm. You see what I'm saying here? It's like, okay, well, let's go back to my original premise then that we're meant to transform. We're meant to transfigure. And who's to say now that this technology was not sent by God to assist us, okay? So that is my thinking on AI and transhumanism, especially relative to the soul, because what is missing in most contemporary conversations about AI is you'll get someone like me standing up to you, wailing against AI and transhumanism, and they never utter the word soul, right? It's all about the soul. The soul in the age of AI and transhumanism, okay? So I want to leave you or offer you a statement. And sorry, Jeremy, we're not clicking here. I might have to stand over here. I want to offer you a statement. You are not something finished trying to survive. In other words, the human race is not finished because of AI and transhumanism. In fact, we're not even finished at all. We're still under completion. We're still under construction. We're constantly evolving. The human body has been evolving for tens of thousands of years, okay? So we're not finished. So you are not something finished trying to survive. In other words, don't let someone scare you anymore about AI and say you got to fear this and you got to remain pure and organic, because that's fear-based. That is 100% fear-based. What I'm submitting to you is that you are something unfolding, trying to awaken. And what is unfolding is not your physical flesh and blood body, it's your what? It's your soul. It's your soul that is unfolding. In early Christianity, if Jesus were standing here, he'd be saying, but darling, your body's temporary. This is not you. This is not me. This flesh bag I'm running around in, that's not me. That's the avatar I use to navigate in this realm. It's the soul that we got to talk about here. The soul we've got to connect with. That's the key to navigating these times. So I was in Washington, D.C. Just a month ago. This time last month, I was in Washington, D.C. with Ancient Aliens Live, a live show that we do that accompanies our Ancient Aliens show. Anybody watch Ancient Aliens on? Thank you. Yeah, great. So I have been one of the core presenters on the show since 2011. Myself, Georgios Tsoukalos, David Childress. They call us Kirk, Spock, and McCoy, but they won't ever tell us who's who. And so they send us out on the road, and we did 100 of these live shows, something like that, and 300 hours of episodes on the History Channel. It's one of the longest running TV shows in history. And the reason why is because we're really actually the tip of the disclosure movement, or on the tip of the disclosure movement. And we opened up millions and millions and millions of minds to questions all of you ask here on the Ascension path. Who are we? Where do we come from? How do we get here? Do we have teachers? How did my body get to be like the way it is? And when it's time for me to go to my next level of creation, where am I going? And how am I going to get there? These are the fundamental questions asked by conscious ascenders, star walkers, I refer to you all, and also questions we ask on Ancient Aliens. And as I was approaching, as a co-producer of the show, I'm involved with development of ideas and this, and I'm always looking at this through the transhuman lens and the AI lens. And from 2014 to 2020, they're like, what's that? What are you talking about? Now everybody knows what we're talking about. But I would ask them to focus that the locus of investigation into our interaction with angels and ETs should be our body. Because there's so many stories about beings coming from another level or another world and tweaking our DNA. And we zeroed it in on the brain, the neocortex of our brain, this wondrous aspect that was only activated between 200,000 and maybe 2 million years ago. And the thing is that the neuroscientists who study our brain, they can't agree on how the most important part of the human body after the heart got to be the way it is. And they write these papers and they debate back and forth. They say, oh, it was cosmic rays from Cygnus. No, it was cooking meat. More protein, the brain took off. No, and I like this one, it was group sex. No. It was psychedelic mushrooms. Yeah, I like that even better. Well, maybe not better, but you know what I mean. No, it was extraterrestrials. I step back and say, well, how about extraterrestrials drop down from the next higher layer? They cooked a steak with us. We had fabulous group sex together. We ate some mushrooms and we basked in the cosmic rays of the Milky Way. Right? Something like that. That's the fundamental question. And the thing is that moment, whether it was 200,000 years ago or 2 million, we now believe it was unnatural. There was an intervention that triggered the creation or the unleashing of the part of our brain that's responsible for art, science, music, mathematics, everything we think of as human civilization. Without it, we're still hugging trees. Okay? And so how did that happen? Well, the fact is that we don't necessarily need to answer how it happened. The fact I want to point out today is that this week, next week, within the next few weeks, the next shoe on that alteration will drop. That is when Elon Musk and Neuralink go into production with nanoparticles that are going to be sprinkled into our neocortex that will then represent a new layer of our neocortex, which means that the events of 200,000 to 200 million years ago, or 2 million years ago, and what's happening in our world today are the same. Whoever it was that triggered the activation of our neocortex must have known of a future point when we would be augmenting our brains, tapping into a consciousness, an intelligence so far beyond human, we can't even comprehend it. That's what they call the singularity, when the AI that we're creating becomes smarter than all of us combined, which is expected to happen by experts sometime in the next 5 minutes. Literally this year. We have no comprehension of what's going to happen after that, beyond that. None whatsoever, but those events are linked. And it so happened that on Ancient Aliens Live, we rolled into Washington, D.C. during the exact week that disclosure happened. The exact week after 15 years of doing episodes, 300 episodes and 100 live shows, we rolled into D.C. the exact moment disclosure happened. Well, what do you mean disclosure happened? I didn't read about that on the news. Well, yeah, you did. Podcaster says, President Obama, are aliens real? Yes, they're real, but they're not in Area 51. And no, I haven't seen them. They've hid them from me. Next day, Peter Doocy on Air Force One, President Trump. You sure what President Obama said? He said aliens are real. What did President Trump say? He shouldn't have said that. That's classified. That, right? You saw that. I got on the blower with my dear friend, Dr. Travis Taylor, who for a number of years was the chief scientist of the U.S. government's UAP program, probably knows more about aliens and UFOs than anybody I know. And he said, William, that was disclosure. That was it. There's not going to be a president that stands up and gives us a lecture about aliens, although the government did just launch aliens.gov. Did you notice that? Something's coming. He said, no, William, that was disclosure. And I think he's right. I mean, President Obama, both Obama and Trump said, I could give a shit about aliens. They have zero interest in it. So a president's not going to do it. So I'm in D.C. in this moment realizing, wow, the world just changed. The world just changed. Where's the soul in all of this? Do these aliens have souls? If so, we'll baptize them. And so I decided I need to take a walk. I got to get some fresh air. And I found myself over at one of my favorite places, which is the Thomas Jefferson Memorial in the tidal basin of the Potomac. Beautiful Greco-Roman style temple dedicated to the third president, the author of the Declaration of Independence. I'd been visiting the Jefferson Memorial since childhood. My father was as a young man, was a bruising IRS prosecutor. He liked to take on mobsters and prosecute them. And as a child growing up in Detroit, we'd get in the car and drive to DC to see the cherry blossoms and relive the glory days, right, with my father. And I distinctly remember Jefferson having a deep impact on me. So beautiful to see this incredible temple. And as a child, I remember just freezing my butt off in April in DC, seeing all of this. But as an adult, with new eyes, fresh eyes, I look at it differently. I have an art history background. I spent a number of years shuttling back and forth from Nashville to DC, writing a book about the Ascension symbolism in the dome of the US Capitol. The US is founded on the principle of ascension, okay? That's the founding principle of our nation. And as I'm going into Jefferson Memorial just last month, I'm thinking about, wow, I'm looking at Jefferson now with more adult eyes. And when I look at him now, I don't see just a founding father, I see a proto-star walker. I see a man who is laying the groundwork for our ascension, and he's talking about the soul. And I'm going to share this with you as we go here in the next few moments. And having studied the ascension symbolism in the Capitol and having studied domes and sacred places around the world, I just kind of snuck a little photo up here like this. The dome, of course, is above him, but I did a clever photo thing here and made it look like Thomas Jefferson has a halo, right? This dome now looks sort of like a halo, and it's swirling up above him. And I thought it was a cool photo. I wanted to show it to you. And you also need to know that Jefferson's dome is modeled after the Pantheon in Rome. The Pantheon, the word Pantheon means pan, all, theo, gods. So it's devoted to all the gods. And when you look up into the dome of the Pantheon, and I'm just going to have to stand back over here. When you look up into the dome of the Pantheon, you're looking upward, but you're also looking outward. But at the same time, you're looking inward, into the light within, into the fire within. The word Pantheon is related to another Pan word, Panpsychism, which essentially says that the entire universe is alive. And what that means is that the chair you're sitting on is not conscious, but every particle that goes to make it up is alive. So everything that we encounter in our life is in fact alive, and all of it is God. You might even say everything that we encounter is not just God, it's, thank you, it's soul. It's soul, okay? And so when we come back to Jefferson, we're realizing, okay, that this profound temple memorial to Jefferson really does encode something very special for us to appreciate. And that's what I wanted to share with you as we continue. Etched into the interior of the dome is one of the more powerful statements anywhere in Washington, D.C., and that is, I have sworn upon the altar of God eternal hostility against every form of tyranny over the mind of man. Now, Jefferson might not have been able to anticipate AI and what would happen when the tech lords took over in 2020 and told you what you can and cannot say on social media relative to, I don't know, ivermectin, certain political persuasions, I don't know. The tyrants were out in force, and we know that that's That's what's happening here. And that this is a very real risk of AI and transhumanism. But Jefferson's message for us is really quite profound, and it's very apropos for our time. And hoping we're going to get our screen back here. There we go. I'm going to fast forward to this slide. That Jefferson is saying, hey, we know about this, okay? Now, it's important to know that when Jefferson was alive, he lived in an age where telescopes were brand new. This incredible tool or technology was less than 100 years old at the time of Thomas Jefferson. And telescopes were expanding the boundaries of heaven. The earth was no longer the center. Stars were suns. Space was immense. The universe was not a closed dome of fixed lights, but an abyss of possibility. Before the telescope, people would look up into the night sky and see the stars they could see with their naked eye. They thought that was the totality of the universe. Every single human being, until we invented the telescope, thought that was all there is. There's one galaxy, the Milky Way, and those stars that we see. That's it, Bubba. There's no more. Then all of a sudden, we create this tool that augments our vision, and we start pointing it into the heavens, and we find out, wait a minute, well, here's what Jefferson said in 1814 to a letter to John Adams, reflecting on scientific progress and celestial discovery. He wrote, "The telescope has brought within the field of our knowledge many millions of worlds which were before invisible. We did not know those worlds existed." This is called the plurality of the worlds. The idea of a plurality of worlds, that there may be innumerable inhabited realms beyond Earth, was no longer absurd speculation. It was becoming scientifically plausible. Jefferson was one of the first ancient astronaut theorists, saying the whole thing out there is inhabited and it's alive. And everything out there is alive, Panpsychism. So a simple little device, the telescope, a tool that augmented our vision. It followed on, by the way, the invention of eyeglasses, which just a couple of centuries before had caused a tremendous revolution. The church's position was, hey, Bubba, what are you doing putting crystals on your eyes to see? If God wanted you to see, he would have given you a decent set of eyes. Who are you to challenge God's authority? That was the position on eyeglasses. This is the fixed gene, the divine gene hypothesis in action. Stay away from this technology, because if God wants to do something for you, he'll do that. Don't you dare augment yourself. Well, today, how many of us here are wearing eyeglasses? We don't even think about it. The next step is we're going to put contacts in our eyes that are replaceable, or we can remove at the end of the day. They're going to give us infrared vision. They're going to give us the ability to peer into the stars, microscopic vision. They'll also give us supervision, as in supervision, people watching us. This is why we got to be wary of these tyrants and rein them in. But the fact of the matter is that this is the dichotomy I'm speaking of. The divine gene is fixed. The soul is saying, bring it on, man. Help me with this thing here. Help me. This is unfinished. Bring me something that's going to augment me, that's going to give me enhanced capabilities. So it starts with the eyeglasses. It goes into the telescope. And then they start creating this wondrous artwork of the plurality of the worlds that I'm sure resonates with all of us here. This is a favorite one. It's French. You have this couple sitting there having a coffee, talking about, hey, there's worlds out there. And look at this. When you look up the way they portray it, concentrated rings within rings. We're talking about frequency and vibration. And as we go into the center, we find the fire inside. The fire inside, and the recognition, as the pantheistic tradition tells us, that the fire that burns in those stars burns in us. We now know for a fact that every atom in our body came from an exploded star. We are resurrected stars. We are stardust. Thank you, Joni Mitchell, right? It's true. Our body is composed of atoms that were once in these stars that exploded, and now we know about them. This might be the most beautiful photograph of the 20th century. Isn't it gorgeous? Does anybody know what that is, by the way? A what? Galaxy, yes, good job. This photo was taken on October 6, 1923 by a man named Edwin Hubble. He was a space astronomer. he and his buddies were looking at photos they had taken of looking out in the Milky Way, and they saw this little smudge of light. They said, oh, that's just a nebula. It's just gaseous nebula. Don't pay any attention to it. Hubble's like, oh, no. My intuition's telling me it's something else. He hot rods his space telescope, and he takes this photo and proves that there's not one galaxy in the known universe. There's two. There's two. Oh my God. They think of the mind expansions we're talking about that led up to our present moment. We called it Andromeda. During the 20th century, we built a space telescope named after Hubble that started giving us images like this. And now we have the James Webb telescope. This is an image that was taken. They pointed the Webb at a patch of sky about the size of a postage stamp, relatively, in the direction of Orion. 45,000 galaxies are in this photo. There's 1 trillion of them out there flying around in the known universe, let alone the metaverse. It goes on and on and on. And our soul is what traverses the on and on and on. Because, darling, this body's not going up there. Even Paul knew that. Flesh and blood can't inherit the kingdom of heaven. But this is why NASA started to want to turn us into transhumans so that we could go into space. The more plausible that this cosmic pluralism becomes, and this is totally relevant in our world, is because it dissolves earthly theology. This is what's really at risk in our times. If there are many worlds, then creation is abundant. If creation is abundant, intelligence may be abundant, and there might be different kinds of intelligence. If intelligence is abundant, revelation must be abundant too. I think Jesus is hopping to these 45,000 galaxies out there. Why not? This kind of thinking destabilizes human religion and exceptionalism, the divine gene. God made our genes, this body, this way. God damn it, don't you change that? Okay? Challenges our exceptionalism, but it also elevates humanity. We are not the only consciousness in the universe. Hello, does anybody disagree with that? No, we are not alone. We have never been alone. But we are conscious within this universe. Jefferson is a prophet of this and a non-human intelligence forefather because his pluralism prepares us for the imminent destabilization or recalibration that we're all experiencing right now. This is what you're feeling. That restless feeling is the destabilization from these other intelligences, artificial, ascension, angelic, and especially alien. Okay? And we have to come not from our physical flesh and blood body that is freaked out at this moment. We've got to find the soul. We've got to come from the soul. And this is a very important message that Jefferson has for us in his memorial. He's saying, or what I'm saying, is that as the world wakes up to the new AI transhuman reality, disclosure, as some of us refer to it, it's going to be a destabilizing event for many. But it's really meant to be a recalibration. I think past human civilizations have risen to this level and then fallen. And now we're rising to it again. And it's up to us now to rise even higher to meet AI in all of its forms, to meet the transhumans, to welcome them, and, to cook a steak with an alien. I'm not into group sex with them, but we might have some mushrooms together, okay? So what do I mean by Jefferson is a prophet of all this, and he's speaking to the fire inside? Well, let's unpack that for a moment, because when you go in the Jefferson Memorial, they have etched in stone the beginning of the Declaration of Independence, which says, we hold these truths to be self-evident. Why don't we read it together just for a sentence here? We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights. Among them are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Let's stop right there just for a moment and look at what Jefferson is actually saying to us. We're endowed with something by our Creator. We're endowed. And what we're endowed with, I'm submitting to you, is the fire inside. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal. Self-evident means not granted by a king, not bestowed by a parliament or a president. It's non-negotiable. Self-evident because they're rooted in the structure of reality itself, this pluralistic universe that we live in. Jefferson's liberty is not mere earthly political freedom, the Bill of Rights. It's cosmic. It's ontological freedom, the recognition that each human being is endowed with an interior authority that precedes every earthly king. It comes from God. It comes from another realm, another world. And this is profoundly Star Walker in spirit, because I propose that we're all Star Walkers. We're not origins and natives of this planet, yay? We're temporarily visiting here. And we're in one of these things, these avatars that helps us navigate this world. And at such point, we're going to go, you know, I just got a divorce. I think I'm going to go to galaxy 8000b. No, send me to galaxy 44,000b, because that's just far enough now. Right? Something like that. We can choose is the idea. And we chose this. We chose to be here at this profound moment. The Declaration of Independence continues, and they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Unalienable, inalienable, which means impossible to take away or give up. And this is what made me give up this antagonism towards AI and transhumanism, and this insistence that we must remain pure and organic. Give it up because the really important part of me, my soul, can't be given up. Okay? Yes. Let's focus on that. Okay? Thank you. This is why Jefferson is this forefather. A Star Walker in my framework is one who recognizes that human consciousness participates in something greater than itself, a plurality of worlds, with souls inhabiting those worlds. Jefferson's genius was not mystical language. I'm reading from an article I wrote on my website, iamwilliamhenry.com, about this experience. You can read about it in detail there. His genius was not mystical language, it was metaphysical implication. When he wrote of inalienable rights, he was pointing to something transcendent within us. It implies a metaphysical endowment, a spark placed within the human form, but not by politics or politicians, and not susceptible to their fallibility. A spark in rights that cannot be taken away must come from somewhere beyond government. That somewhere is the same source Star Walkers have always sought. This is, I believe, what we're all seeking here in this room, is that source. How do I connect with that source? How do I awaken my soul? In esoteric language, these rights arise from the divine spark within us, the indwelling light body, the imago Dei, the image of God, the interior flame. This is light body language that Jefferson translated into Enlightenment prose. He's talking about the fire inside. And Thomas Jefferson would not have known of them, but several Gnostic texts speak explicitly and sometimes dramatically about the divine spark, the fragment of heavenly light trapped in the human being and awaiting awakening. According to writings like the Apocryphon of John, for example, in the Dead Sea Scrolls, in the Gospel of Philip, also, in the Gnostic codexes, humanity contains a fragment of the original divine light that became trapped in the material world. Created at the Big Bang 13 billion years ago, your soul has been traveling that long. That's why we feel a little tired on Tuesday morning. Some traditions claim that the human soul carries a fragment of the original creative intelligence of the universe. We're entangled with it. It's a profound quantum physics concept. The Gnostics call this interior flame the divine fire, the divine spark. And if that's true, then humanity is enormously significant because of this divine spark. We are containers of cosmic potential. Jefferson intuited and translated this ascension metaphysics into civic doctrine. The Declaration of Independence is what America is founded upon, is this principle. And only in America do we really talk about ascension. And this is why we're free. We're free in ways that people around the world are not. And this is why it's incumbent upon us to elevate our game and to rise on this occasion. It's also our fault that we gave the world AI and transhumanism, but I guess it's our mess to clean up too. But it wasn't because Jefferson spoke of light bodies or celestial initiations, downloads and codes like we speak of today, but because he articulated the first principle that makes ascension possible: interior sovereignty. And that is the locus of our ascension practice, is not on the body, but on our interior sovereignty. If the divine spark resides within the individual, then the individual cannot be owned by kings, governments, or empires, digital or otherwise. And this is the line in the sand here. It's like, yeah, okay, let's give a shot at this AI and transhuman technology. If it doesn't work out, I'm sure God has a plan for that too. But let's go back and focus on the soul. And the Starwalker tradition teaches that ascension begins with remembering our celestial origin, this plurality of worlds. And Jefferson's revolution insisted that society must be structured in recognition of that same inner dignity. In this sense, the American experiment can be read as a civic echo of the ancient ascension tradition, a system designed to protect the sovereignty of the soul so that consciousness itself may evolve. And this is simply what AI and transhumanism is consciousness evolving. So this is why I flipped from saying, we got to be guarding this, we got the divine gene, we can't let them come at us with this technology, this body is fixed, and don't let them do anything to it. That's 100% fear-based. That is scientific materialism. It's not, in my opinion, a spiritual view of AI. Jefferson did not preach ascension, but he built a civilization premised on the idea that every human carries something divine and inalienable. That's powerful right there, and that should be the North Star of America. That is the torch in liberty's hand right there. This is why his philosophy still matters as humanity approaches a larger cosmic horizon and joins the campfire of the elect. You know, at the time of the second coming, we're told that Jesus will gather the elect from across the four winds, across the universe. What? That sounds like people divorcees coming from Galaxy 45,000b, gathering the elect, and they're coming to Earth, and they're going to be hungry, and they might want a little mushroom to go with their dinner, and we got to be prepared. I think that's why we have a psychedelic renaissance these days, is because we know we got to unlock these keys within, right? But you get what I'm saying here is that there is something truly profound about us. As I mentioned, and I've just got a few minutes left here, I've still got 45 minutes of presentation, so I don't know where the time went, but thank you all for rolling with me here. I mentioned I spent a number of years shuttling back and forth to DC to study the Ascension symbolism in the dome of the US Capitol. I felt called to share that with you just for a brief moment. Alan said I am the model for Robert Langdon, Dr. Robert Langdon and the Da Vinci Code. And it is true, because when Dan Brown wrote his book, The Lost Symbol, it was my experience that he was writing about, my nonfiction experience. Brown was perfectly entitled to do it, and he did. Because I found that this fresco in the dome of the US Capitol to be the most profound image in certainly all-American artwork. When we look into the dome, we see George Washington sitting on a rainbow. George Washington sitting on a rainbow. The painting, the fresco, is called the Apotheosis of George Washington. The word apotheosis means to raise from a man to a God-man. This is Washington as an ascended being, calling to us Americans to say, follow me in this path. We've laid out the Declaration of Independence for you. We've established the sovereignty of the soul. The next step is for you to raise the soul to the next higher level. And this is why Washington on the rainbow is so important. He is surrounded by 13 maidens with stars on their heads. First time I went into the Capitol, they told me that those 13 maidens represented the 13 colonies. And my rebuttal was, well, wait a minute, but that's a heavenly scene. Washington isn't on earth, he's in the heavens. So those 13 maidens with stars on their heads, that can't be the colonies. It's got to be something else that they're alluding to here or talking about here. Constantino Brumidi was the painter. I went into the architect of the Capitol's office and blew the mind of Dr. Barbara Wallen, the curator of the architect of the Capitol's office, when I put this image on her screen. And I said, Washington is on a rainbow because he is portrayed as the American Christ. He's on a rainbow because he is now a resurrected man, and he's calling all of us to our ascension as well. And she was stunned by that. And with that, she gave me free rein in the Capitol, along with my co-author, Dr. Mark Gray, to investigate. Because as she said, William, we know there's mysteries in this building. We just don't know what they are. And we hope you can find out what they are. And this is what I was saying, is that the reason Washington is on a rainbow is because the American dream is really about ascension. It's about apotheosis. It's about recognizing the soul as the essence of the human being, not the digital gene, not the divine gene that we talk about today. The great promise of Christianity is that when the Christos appears at the second coming, we shall be like him when he gathers the elect from across the universe. This doesn't mean we're going to be 5'10" Jewish guys with long hair and a beard weighing 165 pounds, which is what you see on the Shroud of Turin. By the way, he's a bodybuilder too. That's something else I like to point out about the Shroud. What it means when we're going to mirror Christ is that we will mirror him in his light body. He took this body and showed us what it could do. He did not stand in front of the disciples and say, this is a fixed divine gene and you cannot tinker with this body. Okay? Which is what I was saying for years. And I want to say I was erroneous in that. I was just incomplete in my understanding. And what I'm asking you to consider is that the complete understanding of this is that this body was meant to be transformed. It's meant to be transformed into a Christ-like state. And we know we're in a Christ-like state when we're radiating rainbow-colored light. And in fact, Paul in Corinthians told us that this would happen in a moment, in a twinkling of an eye, at the last trump, for the trump will sound and the dead will be raised imperishable, and we will be changed. I'm 63 years old. I have watched this change in a twinkling of an eye. AI and transhumanism was not even remotely in anybody's mind when I graduated high school in 1980. In less than a generation, it has transformed us, and in less than the next generation, wait till you see what's going to unfold on this planet. Okay? And so we're meant to transform, but not in a digital sense. We are meant to follow Jesus in the attainment of what they call the rainbow light body. Paul in Corinthians, again, the body is so natural, but it's raised spiritual. It's raised in glory. There it is. We're not meant to preserve this thing. We're meant to transform it, to transfigure it, to become like the rainbow light body beings. And by the way, in Tibetan Buddhism, one of the key points that I wanted to make here as we conclude is that they tell us that this light body teaching that Christ exemplified and the Tibetan rainbow light body tradition upholds is taught in 13 star systems, including our own. 13 star systems. Wait a minute. Didn't we just talk about 13 maidens with stars on the top of their heads? That's what I suggest is shown in the dome of the U.S. Capitol, is that Washington raised to a God-man. He was divinized, and now he's connected to the other 13 star systems where this teaching is taught. Imagine if that's the case, that Earth and Soul is part of a network, a federation, dare I say, of star systems where this freedom and liberty is known and taught, and the light body activation is real. This is the premise of my work. And for Christians, by the way, have no fear about the divine gene fixation type of thing, because Christianity teaches that our physical body is a step toward a more perfect light body, a perfect body and perfect soul. Paul said so. He says there's a physical body and there's a different spiritual body in which we will be resurrected. For you were once in darkness, but are now in light in the Lord. Walk as children of light. And that's practice. And I will leave you with that. How do we walk as children of light? I'll tell you one thing. We don't walk in fear. We don't fear AI. We don't fear transhumanism. We don't fear tyranny. We walk as children of light from the root of our soul. So Thank you, everybody, for your attention today. God bless you, and enjoy the rest of the time. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Oh, yeah, pardon me, Alan saying you can find me at iamwilliamhenry.com. I'll be out at my table for the next couple of days. Please visit and scan my QR code on the table and get information about tours and other
Thanks so much, William Henry. Thank you.